Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Apollyon. You might be asking yourself, why is this video late, why is this video only 7 minutes long, and why are we playing as Apollyon to the Cathedral? Well, all of those reasons are kind of combined why the things went sour. And of course I was just a bit busy yesterday and I wasn't able to upload, so then I have to record the next morning, and when I do that, because my internet is slow, the video actually comes out a few hours later than usual, and I never want to rush things, so for that reason I just recorded the next morning, thinking that I'll be in a better mood, I'll be just in a better state of mind when I'm actually rested, and then I can actually talk about what went wrong and how we can tackle to solve those issues on the next run when something similar happens. But you might be asking yourself, what exactly went wrong? You know, the run actually seems pretty decent up until this point. We have a nice assortment of items. Mom's Content is obviously a great item. The Bowl of Tar, in my opinion, is a very good item. And the Toothpicks aren't anything special, but at least they're a DPS upgrade with also a range increase due to the shot speed. And you're absolutely right, you know, there's no reason for this run to actually go that sour, or at least it doesn't seem that way. But you can see that already we're having or struggling to some degree, at least in the sense of enemies we were facing. The first boss was the little horn which just spat out balls, those shadow balls, and they're very unpredictable to actually shoot and kill. And when you have an enemy that just knows how to do those attacks, it actually took me quite longer to kill him than I would have liked. And then the Ragman on the second floor also isn't too big of a deal, at least in the sense that just because we have some items, it's much easier to kill, but he's still quite an annoying boss. At some point, he actually spawned 4 spiders at once, which I don't think I've ever seen him do. And when I saw him spawn 4 spiders at once, I was like, you know, I feel like this run is gonna be a struggle. But actually, there are some good or silver linings in all of this as well. Besides just fighting a few annoying bosses, like I said before, the assortment of items is really good, and especially on Apollyon, because Apollyon, what it can do besides absorbing active items, you can also absorb passive items. And because I think it's equally likely for any of your stats to increase, when you do increase or void a passive item, it's also equally likely that luck will get increased, and because of that, I feel that luck items work extremely well on Apollyon, just because overall you're gonna have more of them than any other character up until a certain point in the game, because with other characters you're obviously just forced to take bad items or bad passive items or just skip them, but with Apollyon you do have that out to sucking them up and then just getting a stat in return. And because you don't need a lot of luck to actually get going, eventually you're gonna get 2 or 3 luck, and that's gonna make Mom's Contact, for example, much more likely to actually trigger and then freeze enemies in their place. So, you know, there are good things about this round. I wouldn't say it was weak, it was mostly about me, of course, because I was busy and I was kind of tired when I played this in the evening. Maybe my focus wasn't there, but it was definitely one of those runs where at the start you feel like you're dodging well, you feel like you're on top of your game, but as the run goes on, because you're faced with these bosses and enemies that just take ages to kill, you feel your concentration dwindling, and eventually you just start getting worse and worse, and you just started getting hit and hit. And the onslaught of bosses doesn't stop. I have to say that this was probably one of the runs where I faced the most, not annoying, but the most patience-inducing bosses that I've ever faced in my life, in the sense that there weren't hard bosses to actually deal with, they just required a ton of patience, because you have to focus your shots on other enemies which they spawn. And even Chop, for example, spawned a lot of drowners and charged drowners, and obviously they have a bunch of HP, which means you have to shoot at them before you can shoot at Chop. And now we were fighting the champion Ragman and the champion Little Loki, I believe, not Loki, the guy with the skull which spins around, usually with brimstone, but it was the champion variant which spawns skulls that float around and spiders, and it was just so many enemies on the ground. And of course, with the loadout we have, we're not very good at dealing with multiple enemies. We have no AoE, we only have, actually what's surprising is that we have a run that's tailored to kind of one target DPS, and we work extremely well where we're only fighting one target, but when there's multiple targets, we can't really do much against that. Thankfully, getting Triple Eye here kind of amends that at least a little bit, because Triple Eye is usually an item that increases or gives you 3 shots, but because we have Tractor Beam, it essentially means we're shooting 3 shots at once, effectively tripling our damage. Sure, our tear rate is actually decreased a bit, which means that it's not exactly a 3 damage DPS upgrade, but overall it is definitely an upgrade. And the fact that we can essentially one-shot enemies, at least with one click of a button, It's definitely a great help at dealing when there's multiple of them. But I'm at this point, I just wasn't feeling it. Like, I really felt like this run wasn't going anywhere. And I don't know what it was, Obviously, like I said before, we do have some nice stats up. The Halo is a good item, the Blue Mushroom, the Toothpicks, the Jesus Juice, the Triple Shot. I see no reason for why this run would fail, except, like I said, some unlucky assortment of rooms. And I think that definitely the biggest issue here was that besides obviously the variables which I can't control which bosses I face and which enemies I face. If I didn't face so many enemies which spawn other enemies, I think this would be much easier. But then again, this is just hopeful thinking. But what I could have done is that when I sucked up Book of Belial with Void, I shouldn't have been so afraid to use it, because I feel like I often fall into the trap of when I do suck up an item or just have an item with a long charge, I'm afraid of using it. And if you actually were paying attention on the Chub fight, I decided to use it against Chub only halfway through when I noticed that we're not actually dealing that much damage to him. And I should have just popped it immediately and just went to town and tried to kill him that way. And that was my bad, definitely my bad. I felt like if I stuck with just Book of Belial or just stuck with a Void but was not afraid to use it, this run would have gone so much better. I don't think I would have missed boss rush, because obviously having just that extra bit of 3 damage would have really helped us, because we would essentially 1 or 2 shot some enemies which the bosses would have spawned. And I think that maybe in the boss rush there was a good item waiting, because a lot of the people, or at least our final score, didn't indicate that this run was that hard, which means that it's just me who must have missed something. And I think that was the key to victory there, which I kind of neglected. And it's a very, I guess, common mistake to make, and a lot of people do it. Not a lot of people do it, it's just in human nature for you to save and try to optimize the way you use your active items, and that can cost you quite a bit. And here you can see that we're fighting Blastocysts, which is a boss that usually is not too big of a problem, but as you can see, it's just taking us a bunch of shots to actually kill them. And because there's so many of them, I just felt like I could never focus on one, and because the angles and shots are coming from everywhere, I just end up dying. And it's quite unfortunate overall, and I know this video was maybe a bit shorter, maybe a bit rantier than usual, or maybe just a bit not as coherent, I guess that's a good way to put it. But it's also because I didn't really know where this run would go, and I just can't pinpoint it, I just can't say what went wrong. And the fact that we're at the 5,000th place at this point probably means that we must have missed something obvious. The fact that a lot of other people had a much better run than we did is probably indicative of the fact that I did something wrong, and I'm just trying to figure out what that is. And if it was just Book of Belial and not using it offensively, I can understand that, because that's quite a big mistake to make in some cases, in this one apparently. And maybe I missed some good items along the way, which just because I didn't explore the floors or something like that, but that's obviously a problem which I have to address when I play the next daily and try to be a bit more careful, a bit more safe, and just a bit faster. Overall, not a very good daily, but not every daily can be super good. I still hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you next time.